Now available in paperback and e-readers, Isis, Samurai Goddess. The goddess next door takes on kung fu killers in this action-packed martial arts Isis series adventure. Get Isis, Samurai Goddess in paperback and e-readers today. As the release date for the Black Panther movie draws near, the black community is in a frenzy. And in this frenzy, they are out purchasing merchandise related to the Black Panther, from trade paperbacks to comic books to action figures and t shirts. And they all go to retailers like Amazon.com, Barnes and Noble, or your local comic book shop to purchase this merchandise. And while they're looking for this merchandise, they are forgetting to take a look at the work of black creators of science fiction and fantasy. And that's one of the great tragedies related to all this frenzy related to this Black Panther movie, is that many are not paying any sort of attention to many of the people who create black science fiction, black fantasy, black comic books, or black art, like myself. And those people are being ignored as this Black Panther frenzy goes on. When it comes down to this Black Panther movie, many in the black community have a tunnel vision, and in that tunnel vision, it's all they see is the Black Panther, but they don't see any of the work of great black fantasy writers like myself, or the work of many black comic book artists like Mike Williams, who creates the great Deke Sledge comic strip, or black artists like Chris Miller, who creates the Naturally Cute coloring book. No, all those black artists, black comic creators, black fantasy writers, and black sci fi writers who have been working for years towards opening up this medium and diversifying this medium, they have been ignored as everybody has been caught up in this frenzy for this Black Panther movie. And that's something we really need to do something about, because everybody talks about how this Black Panther movie is supposed to open doors for black science fiction writers, black fantasy writers, black comic book artists, but we don't see any of the enthusiasm or support for those black fantasy writers, black comic book people, and black artists who are out here who have been creating fantasy and science fiction for years and have been attending conventions for black science fiction and fantasy for years. And those people need your support more than ever with all this popularity, because in order for us to get towards moving things forward after the Black Panther movie is open, we need to see people going out to buy the works of black creators like myself, because the black creators like myself, like Mike Williams, like Chris Miller, and many others, they are the ones who are going to lay the foundation towards moving the momentum forward. Because after the Black Panther movie is released, it is going to be black science fiction writers, black fantasy writers, black comic book artists, and then black comic book creators who are going to create the material that will be able to serve the art, to provide for the audience, and increase the visibility of those products. Because right now, if you take a look at Marvel Studios, all the black characters that they have out there are now currently featured in films. If you look at Marvel Studios Avengers movies and the Iron Man movies, we already have most of the key heroes. You have War Machine, Falcon, and now you have the Black Panther on screen. So they don't have many properties left to adapt into films. And on the DC side, they've already adapted Vixen, they've already adapted Mr. Terrific, they've already adapted Cyborg. So there are next to no more properties at either of the big two for them to create an adaptation for film. And the only way you're going to see new characters is to go to black creators. Black creators like myself have been creating all sorts of characters for years. At the SJS Direct imprint, I have been working on black fantasy as far back as the late 90s, and I published the first Isis back in 2002. And then later on, I published The Temptation of John Haynes in 2011. And ever since 2012, I have been working on both the Isis series and the East series, and I've been working on other books related to it, such as The Man Who Rules the World. And I've been working on black fantasy for a good 8 or 9 years now, and not that many people know about many of the titles in the SJS Direct imprint or the SJS Direct universe. And when I look at this Black Panther movie, this is an opportunity for many African Americans to start getting the word out, not only about my SJS Direct universe titles, but about the works of other black creators and sharing those with public schools, charter schools, private schools, and black people all throughout the black community. Unfortunately, what I'm seeing from the black community in this frenzy for the Black Panther movie is that everybody is putting the Black Panther first and putting black creators second. And that's something we shouldn't have done as this movie's teaser trailer came out. As this movie's teaser trailer came out, there should have been a concentrated effort towards getting the word out regarding African American fantasy writers, African American science fiction creators, African American comic book artists, and African American creators who own superhero properties and comic book properties and fantasy properties. There should have been an effort towards getting our material out there and making efforts to get people to support our material. But instead of that, we had the whole concept of the white man's ice being colder because the Black Panther was created by Stan Lee and Jack Kirby, two Jewish guys, and everybody was pushing towards getting the word out about that movie. And we had entire schools going out buying tickets to go see the Black Panther, but we don't have a concentrated plan towards getting the word out about black science fiction, black fantasy, and black comic books and providing these materials in places like public schools, like charter schools, like private schools, like community centers, so that African American children can see that there are African American authors and African American artists out here who are providing science fiction and fantasy stories out here and comics for children that feature African American characters. And that's a real tragedy because here was an opportunity for us to start building that momentum early on. And a lot of people wanted to wait until this Black Panther movie was released. But I believe the opportunity for us to go do this was back then and to continue building that back then and then making it so that when this movie comes out, people can see that there's a whole wealth of black fantasy and science fiction material out there by black creators. Instead, we keep putting ourselves second, and when we put ourselves second, we can't capitalize on the momentum from a Black Panther movie. It's like the Black Panther movie comes out, and we made it first instead of putting black creators first. And we really needed to put black creators first because black creators like myself, when we go out here and we write stories like an Isis or an Eastim or a John Haynes, we make our efforts to try to reach African Americans with positive images of African Americans from the African American experience. Moreover, we also go out of our way to hire other black people to work on our projects whenever we can find somebody to work with us. I know myself, if I were to have gotten a surge in sales from this whole Black Panther movie, I would be going out of my way to hire more black artists to work on several of the projects I have had on hold for several years. And I would also be working on building up towards other promotional venues, like maybe even trying to get some ads on Black Radio or Bounce TV, or even going out here and maybe trying to buy some Facebook ads to reach larger audiences of readers. And this is all what people like myself would do if we were to have gotten some sort of support. But when it comes down to this Black Panther movie, it's like everybody is out to support Marvel's Black Panther, but no one is merely making a concentrated effort towards getting the word out regarding black creators of science fiction, fantasy, and comic books. And that's a shame. We really need to be supporting the people who create black fantasy, science fiction, and comics, because I've been on YouTube for several years talking about black science fiction and fantasy and comic books, and I have met a lot of great people and I've shared with a lot of great people, and it's sad that we really can't get any sort of momentum going even with this Black Panther movie on. We have this frenzy for the Black Panther, Marvel's comic character created by two Jewish guys, but we can't build any sort of frenzy or mania for black characters created by black creators. And that's where we really need to build the frenzy for them. That's what we really need to build momentum for. And that's where people really need to go. They say they want to usher in a new age where we see more black characters. Well, you're not going to get any more black characters from Marvel or DC because they've already been adapted for media in most cases. And the only way you're going to see more black characters in science fiction and fantasy related are from black creators. So we really need people to start making efforts to support black create characters first and make efforts to support black comics first and black media first, because if it's not if not for black creators going out of their way to create these characters, create these stories, and publish their own stories, then we would not have a black fantasy or science fiction platform to even have. And that platform has been there for years. And what's really sad about all this frenzy and fervor for the Black Panther is that every one of those black creators is being ignored and placed in a second best position and being seen as second best by black people instead of being pushed to the forefront by black people and having some momentum to ride on and get the sales that they need, because it would be really sad to see all these black people going out to buy Black Panther merchandise from white-owned Marvel and white Disney, but making no efforts to support black creators, black artists, and black writers out here like myself, who have been here for over 20 years and have made almost every effort through their limited resources to reach black audiences and have literally been ignored by those same black audiences who are now in a frenzy over the Black Panther but can't seem to find that same enthusiasm, passion, and heart for black characters or black owned characters by black creators. If you'd like to try some of my SJS Direct publications like the ISIS series, the E-Steam series, The Temptation of John Haynes, and the Spinsterella trilogy, you may do so by clicking the link to Amazon.com, which will take you to all my titles. And if you want to help me pay for the covers that go on the 2018 SJS Direct catalog, you may do so by clicking the link to my Patreon. That's all I have to say for this video. You can comment, rate, and subscribe.